Well, I'm going to just say it. I got raked over the coals a lot over the last week for my comments about trading Auston Matthews. Gotta be honest, I kind of liked it.
Give me the jump! Give me the jump!
But I'm sick like that, that I like things like that. I really enjoyed the fact that the comment section became all about hating what I was saying. And I thought, hey, that's better aimed at me than some, kid named Billy who's got insane things to say about the land. Thought it was better, shooting that shot in my direction. But this is the Canadian psyche, the Canadian hockey psyche specifically, especially Toronto Maple Leafs fans. So let's just rip the Band-Aid off that. Let's go. Should the Toronto Maple Leafs trade Auston Matthews? Obviously, if you watch my comments, my answer is yeah. Yeah, I said it. I think it. But before everybody gets the pitchforks out and you start coming at me,
Cut his fucking head off!
Before you call the police on me for having an opinion you don't agree with, before you act like I'm burning the flag, I'm just asking questions, guys. Should the Leafs trade Auston Matthews? I'm just asking a question. And it seems to make every Toronto Maple Leaf fan act like I just insulted their mother at a bar in Pennsylvania. Every dynasty lies to itself. And I'm not saying the Leafs are a dynasty, but, at one point they were. Every organization, whether it's in sports, in banking, in whatever sector you want to take, every organization, especially corporate ones, they lie to themselves. Every empire falls, and every fan base eventually has to look at someone that they've anointed as the golden boy and ask themselves, is this actually working?
I've never looked like that. That was gross.
And I want to look at both sides of this thing, the pros and the cons to moving on from Auston Matthews. But is this thing working? So welcome to Mid-Ice Crisis, the show where we break down the chaos, the cold reality, and the game-changing moments in the hockey world. I'm your host, Josh Cybulski. Obviously, we're going to be talking about the Leafs in today's episode. If you're enjoying the show, make sure you hit the like, the subscribe button, drop a rating. It really helps the show reach more fans just like you. And we are sponsored by Cwench Hydration. Head on over to quenchhydration.ca. Get yourself a little of the blue raspberry, a little cherry lime. Use the promo code Second Story Pod. Again, that's quenchhydration.ca/Second Story Pod. Get yourself a bit of a discount. Now, I said some shit last week, and I really don't want this show to become about the Leafs, but how do I not talk about the Leafs at this point? The Leafs, they are the luxury brand of hockey. I'm not even sure they're a hockey team. They are the luxury brand, though. But they don't feel like a hockey team. What they really feel like is a financial product. And a lot of things are a financial product. Believe it or not, your house is a financial product. At the end of the day, most things are. But, the Toronto Maple Leafs, they're arguably the most corporatized team in the NHL. If not all of sports, they're pretty damn close. They're like Apple. They're like a Lululemon. They're like the condo that's getting built down the street, but really isn't getting built. It's vibes. The Leafs are branding. They're an experience. But the results of all that, results in Toronto currently are and have always been, at least for the last 40 years, optional. The Leafs, I said last week, they've never been dangerous. They're really not built to win cups. They're built to sell you a shirt, a jersey, some cup with goofy shit on it that says Toronto Maple Leafs, the bumper sticker on your car, the flag thing that blows in the wind. That's what they're built to sell. They're also built to sell you hope, and they're really good at it. And again, I said that last week. That's what they're built. What they're really selling you is probably trauma. But I had somebody comment to me this morning where basically they were like, yeah, but last year the Leafs took the Panthers to 7 games. They took them to 7 games. Yep, they still lost. Hang that banner. Go hang that banner in the arena. Let's have a banner go up. Lost to the Panthers in 7 games, second round. No. Bring back Mitch for that one. Have a banner raising. The Leafs might be one of the only teams where losing in the second round is this monumental progress. I'm not saying that other teams don't do that. Like last year, Ottawa did that. They thought making the playoffs was progress, and it was. But monumental progress is what Toronto looks at a second round defeat as. And like they're like 9 years or 10 years into their window of contention. And they're like, we got to the second round. Great. Good for you. That ain't progress. That's where you should have been like 4 or 5 years ago. It would be like my accountant's coming to me and he's just like, Josh, I got some good news for you, bud. Good news. We only lost half your retirement this year. We only lost half of it. We still got the other half. Still good. Only lost half of it. That's the Leafs. The luxury brand of the NHL. And Auston Matthews is the luxury item. He's the Rolex. He's the shiny thing that the store puts in the window to get you to come into the store. That's what he is. He's a vacant skin suit is what he is. He looks like the guy that would be working at the hotel in The Shining. If you've seen that Jack Nicholson, I know it's an old reference, but he looks like the guy sitting behind the bar polishing the glass that talks to Jack Nicholson. He's a ghost. He really is. He's a robot. And look, I get that robots are now part of society, but do we really need them playing hockey? And with Matthews, he's got the Leafs, and the Leafs are just stuck in no man's land. Like they really are. With him, they are stuck in no man's land. Are they contenders? Should they be pivoting to a rebuild? Are they going to do a retool? Who the hell knows? I don't know what they should do. I mean, I've said what I think they should do, but I don't actually know. And neither do the Leafs. Neither does their management. Brad Treliving, he doesn't know. Nobody knows. They're stuck in no man's land. And look, I've been in no man's land before, you know? It's tough in your life when you're stuck in a spot where you're just in the middle of nowhere. You are stuck between 2 Domino's delivery areas and you can't get pizza from either one. That's what happened in my life. I couldn't get Domino's delivered to my place. I had to take the bus if I wanted to go get it. It doesn't matter. It's a whole thing. That's the Leafs, though. They're stuck between 2 Domino's delivery areas, and they got to take the bus to go to one of them. That's no man's land. That's it. So let's get evil here for a second. Let's get dastardly. Let's get whatever, dark. Let's get uncomfortable. Let's talk about the, whatever you want to call it, Leafs fans would call it like the dark timeline where you trade Auston Matthews. And there is a case, and I'm kind of on this side. A lot of people will say, like, you'll never win that trade. You never win when you trade Matthews. And what they're basing this on is their own feelings about the thing. You can't trade Matthews because you won't get another one. No, maybe you get somebody better. Maybe you get a franchise player like a Macklin Celebrini. Maybe you get a Connor McDavid. You don't really know what you're going to get. But if you're looking at one superstar and you're like, we need him to carry us, and if you're specifically talking about Auston Matthews, somebody made the comparison that Auston Matthews was Michael Jordan. In my comments, I'm not even joking around. They said Auston Matthews was Air Jordan. He ain't Air Jordan. And they walked it back later on, basically saying like, no, I meant a franchise player. No, you picked the best basketball player ever. But even, you know, that's an argument. Whatever. We're not getting into that. This is not a basketball show. But if you want to use another basketball thing, Auston Matthews is not LeBron. He is not Connor McDavid. If the Leafs were a corpse like the Oilers have been in previous years, Matthews isn't dragging them to the Stanley Cup final because Matthews has played on much better teams and he can't even drag those to the finals. You do need depth. You need structure. You need all the things. Cap, flexibility. You need prospects on the way. You need all of it. And we talk about the salary cap and the cap flexibility. Matthews has eaten more than $13 million yours. That is, arguably, you could get 2 top 4 defensemen for that. You could get 3 middle 6 forwards You could get an entire third line on a playoff team, which are all things that would perform better than Auston Matthews in the playoffs. Sorry. Now, every year Toronto does this. We've got these 3 or 4 elite talents. We've got maybe 3 or 4 other pretty good talents. And then we got like 10 guys, and they're all named, Mike or Kevin. They're just 14 random. They're basically like NPCs of hockey. It's like stacking this mansion on top of nothing. Geez, guys, we forgot the foundation. Forgot to pour the foundation. I knew the house would collapse without a foundation. That's the Leafs. That's them. It's actually incredible. Now, they have had years where they've got better depth, but, even in the Dubas years, the depth wasn't great. There were definitely some questionable moves that Dubas made in those years. This and the whole purpose of using the mansion as an example is as soon as you move into that house, it collapses, right? As soon as the Leafs move into the playoffs, they collapse. And if you're paying Matthews that kind of money and he gets shut down in the playoffs, you're $13+ million guy. You're paying Ferrari money to get a Honda Civic. That's what you're doing. And look, Matthews, the player. I love Matthews. I actually think he's pretty reasonably good defensively. Obviously, he's, capable of 50, 60 goals. But what does that do? What does that do long-term if the goal is to actually win a Stanley Cup? Right? If you want to win a cup, 60 goals in the regular season is nice. You know what's better? Goals in the playoffs, May and June. So anyways, when it comes to Matthews, that's part of the case for trading him. And I get people are going to scream and say, well, you can't trade a franchise player. But history says otherwise. Teams do it all the time. Sometimes it's a disaster. Sometimes it works. It really depends on what you trade the franchise player for and what circumstance you find yourselves in. Teams that react emotionally to trade their franchise player doesn't work out great. Right? Joe Thornton, that's an emotional reactionary trade. They trade him because everyone was in a panic, and that's a disaster. Now, ultimately with Boston, they did build a pretty good foundation. They won a cup. They had a pretty good run in the 2010s without Thornton. And sure, Thornton went to San Jose and was elite. It's one of those trades where if you make the window wide enough, you look at the first, 7-8 years after that trade, it wasn't good. Things weren't great for Boston, but they figured out in the 2010s, obviously, and they were not a dynasty, but they were one of the better teams throughout the 2010s. And the Sharks were one of the better teams too. Sharks didn't win shit though with Thornton. They didn't win shit. I mean, they made the finals and lost against Pittsburgh in 2016, but they didn't win shit. So, I mean, you can look at that and be like, what a terrible trade. And in a vacuum, yeah, it looks awful. But overall, the scope of what Boston, the trajectory that both teams went on, pretty damn good. But again, that was an emotional reactionary trade. Patrick Waugh, same. I mean, that's 30 some odd years ago you're talking about. But that was an emotional trade disaster for Montreal. These trades can be a disaster. PK Subban, massive fucking star in Montreal. Flashy as could be, face of the franchise, gets traded. Everybody melted down when that happened, including me. I thought they were nuts for making that move. I was like, what a disaster. They got more structured, though. There was a lot less chaos in Montreal when Subban was gone. They felt like a more serious team, a team that was actually ready to maybe compete in the playoffs. Now, Subban goes to Nashville, and he's just what the doctor ordered there. They go to the finals. They also lose to Pittsburgh. But he was great for the first couple of years, but he ends up getting traded to New Jersey, and he kind of falls off a cliff. Weber is pretty rock solid for Montreal. They go to a Stanley Cup Finals and also lose. But, that trade at first looked like a complete and colossal disaster. Actually didn't turn out that bad for Montreal. If anything, I'd say it was fairly even. Now, you can point to the bad examples. You can point to where teams get made to look stupid. Buffalo trading Eichel. They look kind of dumb. Eichel wins the Stanley Cup. Buffalo's done that a few times. But again, you got to look at who's making the trade. Now I'm going to give you an example of a trade that actually turned out great for the team trading the franchise cornerstone, and that's Ottawa Senators trading Erik Karlsson. The Ottawa Senators traded Erik Karlsson with 1 year left on his deal, and they were boxed in too because Karlsson had 1 year left on his deal. So they essentially had to move him because Ottawa was clearly pivoting to a rebuild. So they had to move him and get something for him, and they got a shitload for him. They got the pick that eventually resulted in being Tim Stützle. They got Josh Norris, who they flipped last year for Dylan Cousins. They got Chris Tierney. They got Dylan DeMello. That was the move. I think they got something else, too. I'd have to look back at the trade, to be honest. Have a look here real quick. Erik Karlsson traded to San Jose. I feel like I'm missing some pieces. Yeah, Francis Perron, he didn't work out. Oh, no, he went with Karlsson. Sorry, my bad. So it was in exchange for Chris Tierney, Rudolph Balcers, Dylan DeMello, Josh Norris, as well as the first-round pick that became Tim Stützle. Now, San Jose erred in making that first-round pick unprotected, but essentially the trade ended up being Perron and Karlsson for Chris Tierney, Dylan DeMello, Rudolph Balcers, Tim Stützle, and Josh Norris. Now, if you're San Jose, you probably don't even trade Stützle straight up for Karlsson if you know what's coming. But that's a trade that, I mean, that's a two-time Norris Trophy winner, one of the best players in the game at that point, shipped off to San Jose. San Jose is never the same. They make one run to the conference finals, I think, if I remember right, first year. And then Karlsson signed the deal. They end up eventually going into a full rebuild. They ship him to Pittsburgh. He's in Pittsburgh now. San Jose is retaining some of the costs there. They also didn't get near the package back for him. So the Karlsson trade is a great example of how you can do it correctly. And Ottawa didn't even have a good GM at that point. That's Pierre Dorion making the deal. Arguably one of the worst GMs of his era. He made that deal. You don't think you can make a Matthews deal? Again, it depends on urgency. What are you trading him for? Are you trading him this summer because you feel you have to? Or are you taking your time and being patient, waiting for the right thing to shake out? That matters when it comes to this trade. So you can very well move a franchise player and get something good in return for them. You just have to do it in a way that's wise. Now, you can even look at the Quinn Hughes deal, feel however you want to feel about what Vancouver did, but they got a really good return on Quinn Hughes, given the circumstances. Now, it depends what Toronto wants to ultimately do, but you can go out there. Now, you can do the other thing. Like, Ottawa also traded Mark Stone to Vegas and looked like idiots. Ottawa looked dumb. Vegas looked smart. They got it. Now, Vegas looks at their stars like more like an ingredient than the whole dinner, you know? And that's why they're so, what's the right word? And I don't necessarily love that Vegas does this, but this is how they do business. They don't necessarily look at their stars as being like irreplaceable. They will sometimes replace them. And in fact, they've done it in some pretty underhanded ways. Think Marc-Andre Fleury. Think several other guys. They got no problem cutting bait with guys. Now, I don't know what a Matthews trade would actually look like, but if you want to get prospects, you could get a ton of prospects and picks. If you don't want that, you could certainly go out and get you can make a case. If you're getting roster players, you could go make a case to get a legit middle six center, like a second or third line center. You could probably grab a top four defenseman as well, and then go get your picks and maybe another depth player. Like, I don't think that's crazy to ask for. Top four defenseman, we'll say a top 9 center, preferably a top 6 center, some picks, some depth. That's not wild to ask for. You could realistically turn one guy into potentially 3 to 5 NHLers. You're not going to turn them into 5, but you'll get 3, Now, are they going to have the impact that one Matthews has? You don't really know. That's the gamble. But you would also give yourself an opportunity to have some cap flexibility, some deeper lines. You're not playing this top-heavy bullshit that the Leafs have been playing, and maybe you make some noise in the playoffs. Think of it like this. If you had money, would you invest it all in one stock, or would you diversify that shit? Ask yourself that. The Leafs are GameStop, and you put all your money in there. A lot of volatility, a lot of emotional volatility. Not many fundamentals, but a lot of volatility. Now, I'm going to go and ruin my own argument with this, but I feel like it's fair. You do need to argue from the other side. Before I do that, I want to point one thing out. So I just sort of laid the case out why you could trade Matthews. Here's the thing. He might walk away in 2 years for nothing. There are no guarantees that he stays. Look at Mitch Marner. Everybody thought he'd stay. He didn't. Does Auston Matthews strike you as a guy who's having a nice time right now in Toronto? And let's go back to his contract history. The guy has not signed deals for long term. It's always like 4-year deal, 4-year deal. Does that show you a guy who wants to maximize his earning potential, or a guy who, wants to do what's best for the organization? Sidney Crosby, he is not. He's not taking 8-7 on every deal. You got Sid's agent there begging, like, please take more, Sid, please. Nope, 8-7. It's always 8-7. This is not Auston Matthews. The only 8-7 he'd take is $87 million. That's what he'd take. But here's the other side. Let's go against my own argument. Do I think trading Matthews could be a disaster? Yes, it certainly could. Because you don't accidentally stumble upon 60 goal scorers. But I don't know that Matthews is still that. Right? I don't know that he's still a 60 goal scorer. So caveat there. But 60 goal scorers don't grow on trees in Northern Ontario. They're not everywhere. They're not a replaceable asset. You're talking about somebody who is a sniper. What if you go the Phil Kessel route and you trade him and he goes and wins 3 Stanley Cups? Oops, that happened before. Now, the thing about Phil Kessel is he got insulated, and that's kind of what I think Matthews has to have. Whether it's in Toronto or anywhere else, you have to insulate this guy. He cannot be the emotional leader of this team. And sometimes not even the on-ice leader. But if Toronto trades Auston Matthews and he goes and wins 3 cups, that might end some Maple Leafs fans. They might never be able to recover from that. And I don't know if they can recover from that as a franchise. I mean, they'll still make money, but just the fans are going to have an aneurysm over that one. It'll be talked about, much like Phil Kessel gets talked about, like Babe Ruth gets talked about. That would be wild to see. Like, that would be something where people would legitimately start talking. Like, if Auston Matthews got dealt and all of a sudden he goes and wins a couple cups, it becomes the Babe Ruth of hockey. Because the Leafs haven't won a cup in a long time. What are we at? 58 years? Something like that? No, longer than that. 58. Yeah, 67. The Babe Ruth trade starts coming to mind. It becomes a curse, like a family curse. Your kids will grow up hearing, we traded Matthews. And then other people will whisper, why the fuck do we do that? Now, is Matthews really the only problem? God, no. God, no, he's not the only problem. The way this team's built is the biggest problem. And I know last week people said, like, I was blaming him. I'm not just blaming him. It's a much bigger issue than just Auston Matthews. He can defend. He can score. He drives play. He's got good analytics. He does most things on the ice. And people make the argument, like, you don't trade greatness because management's incompetent. And I understand that argument. I think it's pretty fair. Get some competent management, see what they think. Like, I would be moving out Jim Tree Living's son and finding someone else to run this team, and I would give them time to assess what they're going to do. But I can make a lot of analogies and things like that. Like, you don't sell your house because you don't like the paint. You paint over it. But I think Toronto's tried to insulate Matthews a lot of times, and I don't necessarily know that shuffling out the furniture is going to fix the problem here. You know? Do I think Auston Matthews is the Leafs' biggest problem? No. I think they have terrible depth. I think they're a soft team. I think they've completely screwed up the salary cap for themselves. And I think they've built a team that has a lot of good highlight reels, but not a lot else. And I do think that if you bring a different manager in who trades him, it's not an emotional trade, which is something Toronto's going to have to stay away from. If you make an emotional trade, you lose. I think bringing in someone else to potentially look at it keeps things rational. He's not emotionally invested in Matthews. He didn't draft him or sign him or anything. And you can make an argument you build around elite talent and you don't torch it because you're pissed. But where's, again, to play devil's advocate on the other side, where is Matthews' play going? Is he going to get better at 28? Probably not. Is he peaked? Maybe. But in all of it, whether you're on the side to trade him or the side to keep him, there's a truth out there that no Maple Leafs fan ever wants to hear. They are, and I said it off, they are a corporate entity. They are built to be a content machine. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter what the team does. As long as they produce enough highlights and enough stars to sell the shit, nobody cares. If they win, that's great. That's like a bonus. If they lose, also, who cares? They sell out either way. The fans will still cry. Whether they win or lose, they're going back. They're buying tickets. They're renewing the season ticket package. They're buying the merch. It's actually the perfect business model because, the Cubs proved this to be true. So did the Red Sox. Failure is actually profitable. So my bet is Auston Matthews probably stays because he sells hope. We're going to build around Matthews next year. And to be honest with you, like, hope flourishes. Like, I'm gonna go to politics for a second. The thing that you can win in politics, if you can just sell hope to people, you can win. And use whatever political figure you want. Hope is a product that you can sell. And it costs a shit ton of money. Think about hope for a second. So should Toronto trade Auston Matthews? Logically, I think so. Emotionally, absolutely not. Realistically, I don't think they will. Because when it comes to the Leafs, the Toronto Maple Leafs, it's really not about hockey. They have a product that actually, it transcends most products. It's almost to the point, and people will say this all the time about hockey, it's almost to the point with the Leafs where it is like a religion. It's like a religion, and, do you want to trade your Messiah? No, you're probably just going to keep praying that it works out. And I think that's likely what is going to happen in Toronto. I don't see them trading Matthews. I could be wrong. I think they're going to take another kick at this thing. With the spot that they're in, with the lack of draft picks, especially first rounders coming up, you almost don't have a choice, because if you sell everything, you don't even have your first round pick to draft high picks. You've already traded that shit away. So what do I think happens? I think Matthews hangs around. The Leafs take another run at this thing in the summer. I don't know how they retool it. I wouldn't let Tree Living do it, but I'll see you all next April or next year at some point when we're back here in this exact same spot talking about this same thing. But before that, this September, the Leafs are going to have their retool, and we're going to come back here and everyone's going to tell themselves, hey boys, it's different this time. It's really different this time. I can feel it. Matthews looks motivated. He's in good shape. The goaltending looks steady. Stollert's back. Wall looks good. Riley bulked up a little bit. He's been working on a shot. Try to get him on the point there. Things look good. Leafs look good. Yeah, I think they're going to contend for the division this year. We'll see. We'll see if I'm wrong. But I think they hang on to him. Do I think it's the right decision? Probably not. But we'll see. Anyways, comment down below. What do you think the Leafs should do? What do you think they will do? And again, if you like the show, please like, subscribe, Throw us those comments. Hit the notification bell. We'll be back next week. Take care.